Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to the MIKU Podcast. This is our second episode of Part 3, The Human Library. Last episode, we had our team member, Borshara, featured to discuss Mary Scranton. It was very insightful to learn about the developments of Korean women's education from the 1800s to the current day. On today's episode, we will continue to discuss about the education system, but about an American man named Henry Appenzeller, a pioneer in Western-styled education in Korea. And of course, we always have our special guest to join us. So let's all welcome Erko. Hi. Welcome.
Hi, listeners. Hi, viewers. And hi, Alex.
Hi.
My name is Erko, and thank you to the MIKU team for inviting me today.
Of course. And actually, we're really excited to have you here today, Erko, as our special guest. And before we get started on the topic of Appenzeller&Baejae School, let's get to know you a little better. So if you can you give us a short introduction about yourself, please?
Sure. Yeah. Again, I'm Erko. I'm from Estonia. I came to Korea in sometime around 2016, early 2016. And until early this year, I was a student of international studies at Konkuk University of Foreign Studies, and currently I'm doing some self-refining, gaining experience, doing some internships related to my major, and then hopefully continuing my studies at the master's level next year.
That's amazing. Actually, you got me from where you're from the very beginning. So maybe for our viewers, but definitely for myself, I don't know too much about Estonia. So can you tell us like a little bit something, maybe where it is and, you know, maybe how many languages people speak there or what kind of language they speak in Estonia?
Sure. First of all, it's totally okay not knowing Estonia. I can't expect anyone to know Estonia. It's a very small country. It's about half the size of Korea.
I already think Korea is small, so even smaller than Korea.
Yeah,
okay.
And we have 1.3 million people. So Seoul has 10. So
smaller than Seoul.
Of the population of Seoul.
Wow.
So not too many people in Estonia, but
we have a map here, so perfect.
On the globe. Okay, if you see.
Okay, show to me first, and then we'll show it to the viewers.
It won't be. So here's Finland.
Yes.
And then we have Estonia right to the south.
Oh, wow.
To the east is Russia,
okay.
And to the south
right here. So I don't know if people can see it, but if this is Europe, it's actually to the north right here next to Russia and in between Latvia. Okay.
Maybe the editors can work.
Yeah, we can put a map in the front here to show them. So now we know where it is and how small or big it is in relative. Languages, you know, your English is really good. Do they speak English there?
We speak Estonian.
Okay.
It's from a very small language group, from the Finno-Ugric language group, so it's a little similar to Finnish.
All right.
And somehow Hungarian, but I'm not sure where that similarity comes from.
Okay.
It's not so close to Estonian.
Right.
I guess that's part of the group too. But yeah, Estonian and Finnish sometimes can be quite the same, sometimes very different, but they're the most closely related. But Estonians do speak usually very good English.
So they learn it from grade school?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Not everyone, but I think the average level of English is quite good in Estonia. And I personally lived in the States when I was younger. Okay.
So that explains his very good colloquial, speaking for a podcast. Perfect to be casted.
Thank you.
So personally, you said that you arrived in Korea early 2016 or so.
I might have misspoke, but let's just say 2016.
Let's just say 2016.
Exact month anymore.
No worries. So actually, that's quite a good sum of years. So what inspired you, or how did you get to, moving from Estonia to living in Korea for that long?
So when I was young, when I was living in the States, one of my best friends, his family kind of introduced me to Asia as a whole. So not Korea specifically, but when you're that young and you haven't lived in Asia, then it's just a concept,
Right.
Or it's a place on a map. You don't think any more of what is Asia, right? You hear it at school or you hear it on TV, but his family kind of introduced me. They were actually Japanese American.
Okay.
And his family, specifically my friend's mom, kind of introduced me to a lot of the different cultures and countries in Asia. And so I became more and more interested, and finally I came as a tourist in 2015. I visited Korea, and I visited Japan, and then I really started to like Korea.
So from a young age, you had that influence and
Right.
kind of discovered it from a close friend. You said like elementary, middle school?
Yeah,
Or
I guess early middle school.
early middle school?
Yeah.
And then the year before you actually came to study Korea, you had visited maybe once the first time.
As soon as I came to Korea, I only spent 3 days in Korea when I came.
Oh, wow. That was
when
your
I came-
first time, only
yeah,
3
and
days.
then I immediately knew I have to come.
You have to
Like,
come
it was
back next
amazing.
year to...
So like just a couple months later, I was back. I was doing like a month-long language course at Hakdang, like
Yes.
a language school
Yeah.
at my future university. So
Oh,
I
wow.
was
So
doing
you
the language-
studied the language course at Hanyang.
Hankuk University.
I'm sorry, Hanguk
Yeah.
University first.
Yeah, and then so that was my second
Right.
visit. That was a month-long visit, and I thought, okay, this is also too short.
So you came back a third time?
During actually my stay during the language course, I had this. I wasn't exactly sure of what I want to study in the future. I had a thing that I was doing before. I was actually sure I was going to become a graphic designer, and I was working on that. And I slowly started to change my mind about things, what I want to do in the long term, right? And that's when I found international studies at Hankuk University Foreign Studies, and it was just perfect.
Wow.
You know, the whole how it ties everything.
Yes.
In the major, it's culture and politics, this and that together. So
That's
and I was back again.
That's very interesting story, because in the beginning you had wanted to be, you were on the arts side.
Yeah.
Graphic design is very different from international studies and politics
It is,
now.
it
So
is. But funnily enough, the topic of graphic design sometimes ties into my interest related to international relations.
wow,
because
okay.
I think this kind of visual art
yes.
is somehow closely related to the topic of international studies. But that's a different story.
But actually, with that background, it's very unique and different. So going into something that you're currently doing and probably going to be doing in the future, having that creative mindset in the background will really help you tie into different kind of conversations and how to move away. Yeah, I think that's really awesome. And you had said that hopefully for the future coming this year, you're going to do more studies, master's degree in Korea.
I do hope so.
Oh, wow.
Promises yet.
No, but that's a great goal.
Yeah,
so,
I hope to.
do you mind if I ask, what you want to continue to study, or the same thing, or?
Yeah, so I studied international studies, and I want to continue in the same field. But at the master's levels,
Right.
at master's level, some schools have more specific kind of things within
Right,
the field
right.
of international studies, and for example, international cooperation.
Is that any idea what you want to do yet? I'm just curious, since.
I've kind of dipped my toes in different things, and I have they're all related to international
Right.
studies, but I haven't kind of exactly made up my mind.
Well, you still have time, right? You can still dig into more and decide later. So that's really exciting for you. And actually, just in that short amount of time, I feel like we got to know you really well, and the viewers got to too. So it'll be a really interesting topic to talk about for today's podcast with your background. So actually, our topic today, as I mentioned in the introduction, is about Henry Appenzeller. And before today's podcast, just want to know your personal opinion. Have you heard of that name before preparing for today's podcast?
I might have heard the name very, very briefly, but I didn't have any background info on him whatsoever. And I wasn't even sure if I heard the name. I think I heard the name, but I wasn't sure.
I'm guilty of the same. So I've definitely heard of that name before, but it wasn't until we did some really deep research and study that I was like, okay, now I know him a little bit better. But there's only a few handful of missionaries back then in Korea that kind of have like a staple name. So today we'll be discussing very deeply about Appenzellar's achievements. So I'm excited to have you here again today to talk about that topic. So let's get started into today's MIKU Human Library topic, Henry Appenzeller and Baejae School. So as we begin to talk about Henry Appenzeller, can you give us a brief introduction about him and his achievements?
Sure. So Appenzeller was born in 1858 in a town called Souderton, Pennsylvania,
Right.
which I assume is a small town.
Yes.
So his family was of Swiss and German background, so hence the last name, which has a very
Right. It's
Germanic
yeah.
feel to it, right?
It's-
Appenzeller. Right, and in his mid-20s, shortly after getting married, he was sent to Korea as a missionary. So in part of his and the church's mission to spread the gospel, right? And in the end, of course, his biggest achievement is the founding of Baejae University. Baejae Hakdang first, and then which later transformed into what we now know as Baejae University.
Right. So that's exactly what I had looked into too. So as a missionary, he first came in with that goal or that mission in the beginning, coming to Korea. And then probably the most known achievement is actually founding and discovering Baejae University. And back then was Baejae Hakdang. So actually talking about him right from the beginning, it reminds me and probably our viewers too of our last episode or the first episode of Mary Scranton. And Henry Appenzeller was also a missionary, like Mary Scranton, from the USA.
So yeah, Appenzeller arrived to Korea 1 year after Mary Scranton in 1985.
Okay.
And then eventually opened the first Methodist church in Korea. It's called Jeongdong Jaeil Church. The church is still in operation to this day, holds regular services.
Right.
Maybe not during COVID, but it's still an active church.
Right.
And
maybe through Zoom, right? It's still
yes,
going on.
I think he would be proud that even now. And then he founded the first Western-style school in Korea in the same year.
Right.
And the institute first began by teaching English, right? And later it was renamed, as mentioned, to Baejae Hakdang by Kim Ko-jong in 1886.
Okay, wow.
Yeah. Also, to add, the fact that their religious beliefs motivated them to make such trips is quite mind-blowing to me, at least.
Yeah.
Because considering the times back then, now we have the internet and we have modern modes of transportation. But in those times, more than 100 years ago, most of the world was unknown to most people, right? And the fact that they took a trip to the other side of the world like this is it's a little crazy.
Yeah, I would imagine maybe if they brought 100 people on that boat, that journey going to Korea, it was you were risking your life. Even just on that journey going the boat is a risk. Probably many people died or got diseases. It wasn't very hygienic either.
Right.
So as you had said, they don't know what was going to come to them on this journey.
Yeah, and for some, it's not even a trip. Some missionaries do move permanently without knowing the unknown and the dangers that might, be presented to them once they arrive, right?
Exactly.
So it's quite amazing.
And actually, just listening to you explain about, what was going on during that period and how Appenzeller had came, it's a lot of the similarities that we talked about in our first episode of the missionary that we first talked about, Mary Scranton. And she opened the first educational institute for women's education. And had you said, she came a year after. So probably Appenzeller kind of made that backbone of the education system. And then she kind of brought it over to make opportunities for women. So when he had opened, the first Methodist church and the Western-style school, it kind of gave that basis for her to do her own achievements.
Well, they both had the goal of providing education and learning opportunities for the Korean youth, with, of course, the precedence of spreading the gospel and spreading Christianity in Korea.
And and you had mentioned Jeongdong Jaeil Church. So for another project that we had done, I had visited that personally, and it's amazing that it's actually still in use from that period. It's crazy because if you look around the church, it's like you have the city hall, you have like also ancient the kingdom, like the palace is still there. So you have this mix. You feel like you're in a time warp because you have this old church, Western style church. You have like hanoks, and then you have these like modern style buildings. You have the subway just a few like walks away. Yeah. So have you ever been there by any chance? It's really interesting.
I have to admit I haven't been there, but I did a little bit of Google tourism.
Yeah.
So I looked at some pictures. So like you mentioned, it's really interesting to see of this like Western transplant in the middle of Seoul like that. Especially considering how long ago it was built. Imagine 100 years ago when you didn't have the high-rise buildings and it was just, Korean traditional buildings, and then you have a large Western church in the middle of Seoul, right? So the church was completed in 1898, and during that time, the Korean officials prohibited this kind of work, missionary work. So a lot of the work was done in secret, right? According to the church, that's the reason the church actually does not have a cross on the building, because
I didn't notice, but
exactly. So they don't have a cross on the building to hide the fact. I guess nowadays it's unmistakably a church for everyone who sees it, because it's shaped like a church, even if it doesn't have the actual cross on it. But maybe back then, maybe it did the trick to hide to hide their activities.
Actually, yeah, as you had mentioned, back then Korea was very Confucianism based. So having Westerners come in to bring this new kind of religion, to introduce it, it had to be in secret because they weren't very open back then. So I can't imagine that, they had to do this kind of like secret society to practice their missionary activities and stuff. But in that case, if you ever have a chance, just to see the outside, you can't really go inside probably, definitely recommend you and our viewers and listeners too to check out that church, because right in the middle of Seoul, you not only just go to the church, there's a lot of other great places to see around the area.
I'll definitely make the trip. So not only is the church in Cheongdong, but the original Baejae Hakdang is actually located near City Hall Station as well. So do you know the meaning of Baejae Hakdang?
No, actually, not. I don't know.
Okay, so it means for me at least, it sounds a little silly in English, but it means the house for training useful, talented people, or the hall for rearing useful men.
I guess that's like the literal translation from like maybe the Hanja or the old Korean words.
Exactly.
Okay.
So back then, of course, it had a prestigious name, I assume. And this name was actually given by that King Gojong in 1886.
I feel like King Gojong probably viewed this Hakdang as very important and very vital for the future. So naming that is very impressive name that he gave.
Yeah. Right? It's rightfully so. So Appenzellar's first Western-style educational institute eventually came to have the very famous alumni, including Lee Seung-man, the first president of South Korea.
Right.
Ju Si-kyung, one of the founders of modern Korean linguistics, and Na Do-hyang, a famous Korean writer. So quite a lot of famous
alumni really
people.
Came out from that.
Yeah.
So the development of Western-style education became a huge influence in Korea's current higher education system. However, there probably were some hurdles to persuade citizens back then for the change. And I want to discuss one of those opinions back then.
So classes were conducted in Chinese and Korean for centuries in Korean. Having it conducted in English was a new and I assume a very difficult transition, right? So for context, the Korean ideals that had Confucianism as a backbone, and the early Western education being introduced was based on Christianity, which was part of Appenzell's work, and from other missionaries. So Koreans were quite hesitant, or maybe even completely against this kind of new culture coming into their country, and I think vice versa as well. Appenzeller was quite hesitant toward Korean culture too, at least in the beginning. So maybe I'll touch on that in a bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we can talk about both sides. And actually, for both Scranton and Appenzeller, both started out as missionaries and then led to a greater goal to achieving education. So let's talk about Estonia a little bit. Maybe are there any people with similar careers in your home country?
I can't think of any actually, but we've of course had throughout the years academics, educators, and intellectuals with religious backgrounds or convictions. However, in general, modern Estonia is not a very religious country. Quite the opposite. I think it's one of the most atheistic countries that at least I know of.
That's interesting to learn about. I didn't know that, so that's interesting.
So I can't think of any long-term outcomes in that way. But yes, I assume that early schools in Estonia had some sort of religious influence in their creation, as did a lot of educational institutions all around the world. Right.
That's interesting for you to share about that, because I don't think I would have ever been able to learn. So now that I have an Estonian friend, now I can ask those kind of questions. So moving on to the first Western-style private school in more detail, Baejae School's educational format. So what made the school that Appenzeller found special? And what was this Western-style school that we keep talking about, right? What does it exactly mean?
So during his time, education in Korea was mostly focused on Confucianism, Confucian principles,
Right.
and Chinese classics,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
right? However, at 배재학당, Western influences included Western subject matters, right? Religious studies, Christian religious studies, and different extracurricular activities that were, done for the first time in Korea.
Okay.
So this is what made the school, I guess, more systematic and more modern in Korea. And so at least for Appenzeller, and this is on the topic that I mentioned before, Appenzeller's maybe own hesitancy towards Korean culture, because
Right.
Koreans were quite hesitant toward him, that this
Exactly.
Westerner is bringing his ideals and ideas into Korea. Western missionaries, maybe throughout history, often traveled the world with a little bit of arrogance, a little bit of superiority when they came to introduce their religion and culture. So it wasn't only him, it was also the mission of the Methodist Church that he
Right.
was sent by to spread religion, Christianity, Americanism, and also Anglo-Saxon culture around the world, right? So, for example, such as the worshipping of ancestors,
Right.
the Korean did.
Yes,
Korean did.
yes.
Of course, not surprising for someone so committed to the practice of his own religion. It was maybe a little bit uncomfortable for him to
Pray to those gods.
Yeah,
like
exactly,
it would be
exactly.
different from Christianity praying to one God or Jesus Christ or whatever and so forth.
I think there were a couple of situations where he was a little bit uncomfortable with that fact.
Yeah,
and-
it's weird to accept something like that because that's probably the first time he heard of Confucianism, maybe, back
Right.
then.
But when in Rome,
Yes.
or when in Seoul,
Yes.
But I guess over time he started to see some of the virtues or some of the good qualities or aspects of Korean culture or Confucianism. So I was happy to read that he at least came around to some of
Right.
it over the years in Korea.
Yeah, I think that goes for maybe a lot of foreigners that come to any country, though, right? They have what they know growing up. And then they have to be able to kind of open their minds a little bit better, even if it's not right away, right? You might be closed off, me, you, anyone else, Appenzeller, the Koreans there at that time as well. So being able to kind of, it's just mutual respect, right? It's just being able to accept others' beliefs and yours as well. So if that mutual respect is there, then I think, big things can come out of that. And eventually that led to the school and the other achievements.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it doesn't really matter if it was 100 years ago or 10 or 200.
It's-
It's always going to have this cultural shock, right?
It's probably even harder back then, to be honest.
You
because
can't Google, why did they do that?
we have technology right now.
yeah.
Like we can, even if I'm in America, I can read about Estonia or watch videos about Estonia.
Yeah.
But back then, they didn't know until they actually put their feet on that land.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So
For sure.
I can't imagine. And it was good to talk about, his ideals and what he thought. And circling back to, the actual school, what specific subject matter or systems at the school that were different or westernized?
So from the languages, they taught Korean, Chinese, and then, of course, English, right? In the first year, and then learning advanced levels of those languages as the years go on. And along with science, arithmetic, fine arts, music, and then I guess other topics.
I
along with that.
see. So actually, that school, you had to master 3 languages before actually getting into the actual study matters, right?
Yeah.
So I can't imagine, I'm confident in English because I grew up with English, but now if I had to learn Chinese and Korean, and then after that I can learn about science. So I can't imagine it could not have been easy back then.
Even though I've been in Korea longer than you, it's still a daily struggle.
Yeah.
So I moved to the States when I was quite young.
Right.
I know a lot of people speak English, but like maybe I think I got to an advanced level very quickly.
Right.
And I was only 8, and it was just so natural. There was no learning.
Yeah.
It just happened.
Yeah.
Because when you're that age, you're like a sponge, right?
Yes, I was just gonna say
I
that.
saw you're like a sponge.
Yeah.
And then I came to Korea and I was like, that'd be easy. I'm a language genius. No. I came at 8.
You were arrogant. Excuse me. You were Appenzeller.
I was. I thought like I did it when I was 8. It was easy. I don't even remember.
How old were you when you first came to Korea?
21.
Okay.
I think.
So you had that mindset. All right.
Yeah, the Appenzeller mindset. And I thought I was gonna have a really easy time.
What's the reality check?
Totally. I think the age is a really important thing.
Yeah.
When you're that young, you don't care about anything. You don't care about making mistakes. Your brain is, wired differently to learn new languages and all this, or just learn anything, right? It's easier. But I'm advancing. I'm getting better, of course.
Good.
But
no, you're better than you think. I think.
But it wasn't what I thought it was. I thought I was gonna be here for a week. Fine.
Well, you're still going to be here for a few more years, hopefully. That's the plan, right? And you have time to actually be fluent in
it's a hard
Korean.
Language, right?
Yeah, it is. I can definitely agree and experience the same thing with that. Yeah.
Also, the fact, actually, Appenzeller, I think part of his work he translated.
Right.
Not only him alone, but there was, I guess, a panel of other missionaries and people involved in the translation, and the New Testament was translated to Korean.
Yes.
And I wonder how he did this.
I was gonna say
he came to Korea.
Yeah.
No papago.
No papago. How is he going to do this Bible translation?
Yeah.
Was there any, give me a little bit more detail about Baejae Hakdang back then?
Sure. So it was prestigious in that way. Only the smartest students were accepted to the school. And this kind of advanced education or modern education was very rare back in the day. So it was very in demand. And they introduced a variety of actually Western sports as well. So they had basketball, tennis, and soccer. And this, I guess, was very popular among the students. I can't imagine in 1880, whatever, 1899.
Yeah, 1800s, yeah.
Yeah, and then you have young Koreans in the traditional clothes, but like
with a ball, playing
basketball.
That kind of. It's probably their first time seeing it there, maybe in that setting, right? Maybe the school brought in those like physical education kind of activities, and it sounds like sports definitely had that charm to get their attention. And in this case, for Baejae Hakdang, I guess it really helped them get more students.
I think in general, sports can be this universal language of let's have fun together.
In this case, like a gateway, like, look at this fun activity. It's not learning, it's not teaching or anything, but this cultural activity gets your body moving. It's kind of like a fun thing to do. Maybe even like a team bonding, right?
Yeah.
Getting to know foreigners without language.
It's still the same way now.
That's true.
We had sports class, and you can see the first year foreigners who arrive in Korea, they have fun at soccer with the Koreans, even though they don't know any Korean. So it brings people together. I
guess sports definitely had a charm to get people's attention, and in this case, Baejae Hakdang helped them get more students.
Yeah, definitely. Like in the beginning, it only started with 2 students, and in the same winter, that amount rose to 32.
Wow.
And then the following year, it rose to 63. So
Doubled.
It was definitely, definitely popular.
And now I know it's a huge university with notable alumni, as you had mentioned earlier.
Exactly. I also had this question in the beginning to myself when I was doing research about Appenzeller and how he started Baejae University, because it's in Daejeon. All his work was in Seoul. So I was thinking, like, especially in those times, did he start it in Daejeon? Because that's a long walk.
Yeah. There's no way. You'll take him a week to walk over there.
Yeah. So it's currently located in Daejeon because in 1977 it merged with Daejeon Women's Junior College Foundation.
Okay.
And then by 1980 it was authorized as a 4-year college, like the system that we have now, right, with 10 departments and 400 students. That was in 1980.
Wow.
And throughout its history until now, this school has produced over 150,000 graduates, including 50,000 university graduates.
Oh, wow. And can you decipher that a little bit more clear? 150,000 graduates, you said?
Yes.
And that's probably a total.
So, like there's 50,000 university graduates. That's when, I guess, from the time it became an official authorized four-year college. So that's when you have the 50,000 university graduates.
Okay.
So that was the school as a university, and then the rest of the 100,000 were before it became the college that we know.
When it was a
now.
Hakdang, right? When it even before that era, I see. So actually, it's interesting to hear and learn about how Baejae Hakdang grew into Baejae University over the years. The university, which is in Daejeon, holds a lot of history that I had no idea. Like you had said, starting in Seoul and then moving, and then kind of merging with a different school, and then becoming relocating in Daejeon. So actually, let's touch a little bit, maybe comparing different countries. In your home country, Estonia, what was the development like for the education system?
Okay, I can't speak in too much detail about this.
Sure. Just from your experience or what you know.
I just had to look into it a little bit. So when talking about actual formal education, similar to what we know nowadays, that dates back to the 13th and 14th century in Estonia. And they were in the form of cathedral schools, so also from a religious background, right? And Estonia shares a little bit of similarity with Korea when it comes to Japanese and Korean history. We have a similar history with Russia and Estonia.
I see, okay.
And also other foreign powers. So we, so for that reason, not exactly Russia, but there was a period of Swedish rule in Estonia as well.
So let's touch a little bit about your home country, Estonia. What was the development like for your country's education system?
So when we're talking about formal education system similar to what we know nowadays, this dates back to the 13th and 14th century in Estonia. And of course, I'm not an Estonia education history expert,
no worries.
so I also had to look into this myself. And these schools were in the form of cathedral schools. So it also has a religious background, like some other institutions. Estonia had a history of being under the rule of a couple of our neighbors.
Okay.
So in 1632, a Swedish king, Gustav Adolf, founded the University of Tartu in Estonia.
Oh, wow, okay.
Which is still in operation to this day, and it's actually one of the oldest universities in the world, which is still in operation, and it's also the most prestigious Estonian university, with quite a long...
Something new I learned today about Estonia. So actually, similar to what we were talking about, foreigner coming into a country and actually establishing a really prestigious university, I can see the similarity a little bit.
He was a Swedish king. I don't know.
Oh, okay. So
I don't think he asked.
He wasn't just a missionary.
I don't think he came on a boat. Like, hi.
All right, it's a little different of that history. You're right. So he colonized into and just made it himself. He did whatever he wanted to.
So there was a period of Swedish rule in Estonia.
Okay. So during that time period, when the Swedish king was in power, he had made this university, and it is still very prestigious until now.
I don't want to mess up the details.
Okay.
So I'll just agree. I think it was during Swedish rule in Estonia. When the
generalizing it.
Sure. I don't want to make any mistakes.
No problem. And actually, listening to that, was there any notable people who helped or advance the education system in your country?
I can't think of any notable individuals, but there was, I think, an important achievement in the Estonian education system when it was recently as 1919 when the Estonian university courses were able to be taught in Estonian. Mother tongue for the first time.
It was taught in English, I'm assuming?
No, not at all.
What language it was?
We went through, like I said, we were under the rule of foreign powers.
So maybe Swedish or Finnish.
So we had a period of never. No, the Finns
never?
were always cool.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think there's a historic kind of brotherhood between Estonia and Finland, and they've been quite peaceful neighbors.
Okay.
But we've been under German, Swedish, and Russian rule, so those three languages have kind of cycled throughout history. When the University of Tartu itself, the one I mentioned, there has been a period where the courses were taught in Russian, and then they were taught in German and Swedish.
Oh, wow. So
not in that order.
Right. But it went through different phases of rule, and then also the languages.
Different languages, right? So Estonian, the language and the people are a very old one, but having the possibility to teach it
in your mother
education,
language,
formal education in our mother tongue. That's only 100 years, right?
Right, that's not a long time at all. So that is a really good point that you had made. And actually, comparing both countries, Estonia and Korea, what do you think about the differences or similarities in the education system for those two countries?
I can't think of any big differences or similarities in that way, but I can think of the PISA testing. Do you know what PISA testing is? PISA?
I think that would be we need an explanation for me and our viewers, if you can, a simple one.
So the PISA test it happens every 3 years, organized by the OECD, where a lot of countries, I don't think every country in the world, but I guess
a majority
of the countries in the world participate. So they put young students to the test. Everyone takes the same test, right? I don't know what the age group is exactly, maybe 14, 15, 16.
Grade school, okay.
So everybody takes the same test, they test the students on 3 different subjects. They test math, science, and reading, and they have it. Everybody has their for reading, of course. Right. Koreans reading Korean.
In their own mother language. Yeah.
And so they test how well the students rank up with each other, right, around the world. And Estonia and Korea actually consistently rank very high up on the PISA testing.
Oh wow.
And I think, if I think about it, Estonia and Korea has quite different approaches to the education, but seeing that they both can still rank up
in similarity,
in the PISA testing, doing very well, throughout the years, and I think that's
that's interesting.
We both do well.
Yeah, about the PISA testing and how both countries are at similar statuses up high on that chart. So talking, a little bit more informally, what is something that you wish your educational system had that Korea has but yours don't?
This is not on a very serious note.
Okay.
But I really like the mandatory school uniforms, the 교복.
교복, okay.
At middle and high schools.
Right.
Sometimes you see these young guys from Korean middle school or high school, and they have like really nice suits.
Yeah. Like a sports jacket and trousers,
It looks super cool, and I thought
neat. What do you wear?
At our schools in Estonia?
Yeah.
Oh, we wear what we want, and that.
Okay.
I'm sure I made some big mistakes.
What mistakes?
With what I wore.
Oh, really?
I just had to wear a
just
suit,
like
maybe.
A t-shirt and pants and shorts. Yeah. Similar in the U.S. But actually, we maybe, if we have time later, we can talk about in this different episode. But actually, the uniforms itself has a lot of history too. So, just from the colors or, some of the uniforms, they kind of look like sailor outfits too. That kind of brings it back to some of the history on why it is, the way it's shaped. But obviously, it has modernized. Back then, maybe they had wore hanboks too as their uniform.
Okay. I have no idea about this.
Yeah, but
I'd like to know.
It's actually really interesting. If you're jealous of their gyoboks, read up on it too.
I just like it looks super neat.
Yeah, it is super neat.
And they look really cool. So.
It's fun to talk about kind of like some informal similarities and differences too. So concluding this episode with Henry Appenzeller, talking about his achievements and also his journey through coming to Korea and being able to kind of found and discover 배재학당. I want to thank you, Erko, for coming.
Thank you for having me.
to today and, spending some time with us on discussing this topic. It's not normal for, personally me to talk about this kind of thing and discussing it. So it was a good time. How was it for you?
It was great. I really liked it. And especially not knowing anything about him, it gave me a new reason to learn something new. So I had to do research. And
put a little work into it.
And it was great. I learned so much and seeing more things click in Korea now.
Right.
With the founding of certain schools or the education system. So thank you for inviting me.
Of course. And again, hopefully maybe another time we can have another collaboration like this podcast or some other things like that. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We will see you all next week for our 3rd episode of the Human Library with a new hero to discuss and also a new guest. So this has been the MIKU Podcast. Melt into Korea with us. Have a nice week and see you then. Thank you.
Thank you.